Stop me if this sounds insane. What if the safest currency in the world is also the most worthless? We are taught that the US dollar is the global gold standard, the ultimate safe haven. But history proves this is a lethal paradox. Every great power, from Rome to the Spanish Empire, failed the same way. Their money was accepted globally, even as its purchasing power was being systematically annihilated at home. This is not a conspiracy. It is a predictable financial outcome. I'm going to show you the 4 deadly stages of this financial double-cross, the 4 stages of debt corruption, and reveal the exact moment the Federal Reserve completed the final stage, turning the world's most trusted currency into its most dangerous financial weapon. The journey begins at Stage 1, Productive Debt. Stage 1, Productive Debt, the growth engine. Stage 1 is the era of discipline. Debt is good. Debt acts as a powerful lever, a force multiplier. The key metric here is simple. The debt must generate more wealth in future productivity than it costs in interest and principal. Case Study 1. The British Naval Revolution. The British Empire's ascent was funded by massive debt, but this debt was channeled directly into the Naval Defense Act and shipbuilding innovation. Britain borrowed to build a fleet that would guarantee global trade routes. The resulting monopoly on global shipping generated customs duties and taxation revenue that easily dwarfed the cost of the borrowing. The debt was self-liquidating. It was viewed as the most secure asset on Earth because it was backed by genuine, expanding global productivity. Case Study 2. Post-War America. Similarly, post-WWII America used debt not for consumption, but for capital investment. The debt funded the interstate highway system, creating immense supply chain efficiencies. The GI Bill funded the most educated workforce in American history. The debt was a catalyst. It generated productivity and innovation that created the largest middle class the world had ever seen. The system was healthy. But this stage is fragile. It relies entirely on fiscal discipline, a commitment that eventually breaks under the weight of imperial complacency. Stage 2. Consumption debt, the shift to subsistence. The first crack appears here. The great power becomes arrogant, mistaking past success for future certainty. Debt is no longer used for future growth, but to sustain current consumption and the appearance of stability. Case Study 1. The Venetian Luxury Trap. In the late stages of the Venetian Republic, the elite began using their vast wealth and state borrowing to fund massive, non-productive consumption. They borrowed not to build faster galleys to compete with new rivals, but to fund extravagant palaces, endless festivals, and subsidies for a non-working population. The debt became a parasitic, recurring cost that created no future revenue. Modern parallel: the trade deficit and the military. For the U.S., this is the era of the massive trade deficit. Since the late 1990s, America has chronically imported more than it produces. We borrow trillions, not to build factories, but to import finished goods from abroad. We are using borrowed money to buy things we consume, not things that produce. Even worse, significant debt is dedicated to maintaining global military overstretch, an immense cost that maintains geopolitical stability but offers rapidly diminishing returns on investment. The burden is masked by the world's continued acceptance of the dollar, but the debt structure has fundamentally shifted from a growth lever to a subsistence engine. This stage is comfortable but deceptive. The nation feels rich because it can still borrow, but the financial foundation is being eroded by the structural reliance on debt for daily living. Stage 3. Weaponized debt, the political tool. This is the critical juncture, the political corruption. Debt is no longer just an economic issue. It is consciously used as a geopolitical and internal weapon. Case Study 1. The Spanish Financial Default. The Spanish crown, faced with enormous debts from European wars, developed a notorious habit: sovereign default. They simply repudiated or drastically manipulated the value of their outstanding debt. This action transferred wealth from foreign and domestic creditors back to the crown. The debt itself became a tool of political convenience and seizure. Modern parallel: sanctions and the neutrality loss. Today, the U.S. uses its financial hegemony, the dollar, the SWIFT system, and U.S. Treasury access, to impose crippling sanctions on geopolitical rivals. This is the weaponization of debt. But history shows this always backfires. When you use your financial system as a weapon, you teach every rival one lesson: you must create an alternative. The world loses the perception of the dollar as a neutral store of value. The resulting geopolitical uncertainty accelerates de-dollarization and the shift to hard assets. The financial system becomes divided into warring political blocs. The trust is permanently broken. Stage 4. Corrupting debt, the Ponzi phase. We arrive at the apex of corruption. The state's financial problem is so vast that the entire financial system must be organized not to grow, but simply to sustain the existing debt. Case Study 1. Rome and the denarius destruction. In the late Roman Empire, military salaries and government costs were so high that the state could only fund them by continuously debasing the denarius, reducing the silver content to near zero. The debt was only sustained by currency destruction. The government then forced its citizens, by law, to accept the worthless currency. The system had become a currency Ponzi scheme backed by military force. Modern parallel: the Fed's trap. In the modern U.S. system, this dynamic is defined by the Federal Reserve's role. Who is the largest, most consistent buyer of U.S. government debt? The Fed itself. The borrowing is so massive that the interest payments alone, currently exceeding defense spending, would bankrupt the state if interest rates were allowed to rise to a healthy market level. The Fed is trapped. It is forced to keep rates artificially low, corrupting debt, and buy government bonds, monetization. This is the final betrayal. The Fed's primary function is no longer price stability, it is debt maintenance. The dollar is no longer a store of value. It is a vehicle for government solvency, a Ponzi scheme backed by the printing press. This is the point of no return. The financial system is now corrupted by the singular necessity of maintaining the debt. The final play. The 4 stages of debt corruption are complete. The U.S. dollar system has passed the point of consumption and weaponization and is deeply entrenched in the corrupting debt phase. The progression is clear, from a reliable financial tool to an unstable political instrument. The system is demonstrating all the fatal symptoms that historical empires could not recover from. When debt corrupts the state, it inevitably betrays the saver. How do you protect yourself when the currency is no longer backed by productivity, but by political necessity? History shows that in the corrupting debt phase, 3 investment sectors always outperform: hard assets, commodities, and strategic energy. If you want the definitive analysis of which 3 sectors will survive this final stage of currency betrayal and how to reposition your portfolio now, make sure to subscribe. History shows that when debt corrupts the state, it betrays the saver.